Hi, welcome back to another season of building a Trello clone using the need stack. So what is a need stack? A need stack is a full stack framework that uses Angular on the back end, Angular on the front end, NestJS and Express on the back end, and the entire application is written using TypeScript. And what is really nice about the need stack is that not only does it use one language, which is TypeScript, to create the front-end application and the back-end application, but it also uses similar framework concepts between the front-end and the back-end. Nest, it's a back-end application. It's a back-end framework. It has very similar concepts, high-level programming concepts like components and services, and they are very similar to Angular. So in season 1, what we have seen is we have used Angular and TypeScript to build up the front end, and we have saved the data into an IndexedDB database, which is in the browser. So in this second season of this need app application of this Nest stack, what we're going to do is we will build up the back end, and we will connect we'll build up the back end using by creating a NestJS application, and we'll connect that to a database, and then finally we will link up the Angular part, the front end and the back end together. So hopefully by the end of this series of video, we will have the Angular making calls to the back end and saving data into a database, and also by making requests back, and also the Nest application will pull data back from the database and send it back into the Angular application. So without further ado, let's start. I'm not going to go through the installation. You can find the installation on the Nest website. So it's just nestjs.com. And what I will do is this: I will start I'll start creating a new branch. So we are part 17. So let me just create a new branch first. Sorry, let me do checkout. So part 18, right? So just to be sure, we are part 18. And now I will use the Nest CLI to generate the application. So I've installed the Nest CLI. This is the Nest CLI. Okay. So currently it's saying that I can't find package JSON because our application we are not really inside a Nest application directory. So let's create a Nest application by just scaffolding it by using Nest new, and then I'll call my application backend. Just print out some of this stuff, so it will scaffold our application, and then it's going to ask me which of this package manager that I'm going to use. I'm going to use npm. So, and then I'll let it run. So while it's running, what I'll do is this: I'll very quickly run through an Angular application, and will show you how similar the Nest application is to the Angular application. So if you recall, in season 1, an Angular application so when you scaffold the Angular application, it creates a main file, a main TS file, and what this main TS file does is this: it will bootstrap an application, a module called the app module, and the app module will bootstrap the first component, which is the app component, right? So the app component consists of 3 files: the component.ts, which is the behavior, the app component.css, which is the style, your CSS, and then finally your structure, the app component HTML, which is the structure, right? Collectively, these 3 things form a component, and then using the tag specific for this component, we use the tag in the HTML page, in the landing page, to render this. So this is the Angular application, right? So the main TS bootstraps module. The module bootstraps the first component, and then the component renders itself on HTML. Of course, you can have other components, but this is what is generated. This is the structure that the Angular CLI create for us. In Nest, we have the similar structure, except that except that we have got a few less files. Okay, so let's look at this. In Nest, when you bootstrap the application, you get the main TS. Main TS bootstraps the app module component, which in turn starts the first controller. Because Nest being a back-end application, it doesn't use this concept of a component. It rather has a controller. Controllers are essentially request handlers, HTTP request handlers. They have a combination of HTTP method and resources, HTTP resource, right? So when a request comes in, what Nest will do is this: Nest will look at the HTTP request and response, and it will try to match. It will try to match the request to the controller, to the specific controller that handles the request. Okay, if you cannot find one, you get a 404. If there is one, then Nest will pass the request over to that component. We'll look at this more, as we build out the Nest application. So let's go back and look at our Nest command line, and it has actually generated this thing. It's finished scaffolding. So we will look at the directory that is created. So we have got the backend directory. So let me also change to here. And what you'll notice is this. There are some commands for you to execute, like nest start. You can build it by doing nest build the application, right? So we will start by just doing this nest start watch. So we say nest start watch. Okay, while that is compiling, so remember this is a TS, this is a TypeScript application. It needs to compile to a JavaScript. What the Nest will do is it will create a directory called this or distribution, and all the files that we've generated will go in there. Okay, so let's look at the structure of the Nest application. We'll look at it first, and then we will try to access it. So the application is here. We have our main file, right? So this file bootstraps the app module. Okay, and again you notice that it's very similar to Angular. This is the module. It's got the module annotation. Instead of using ng module, it uses the module annotation. It's got stuff import. You can import from other modules. It's got controllers. Controllers are your request handlers. We'll look at controllers in a little while. And then it's got providers. Providers are basically service, right? A singleton service. So we can look at this guy, the controller. Okay, so let me just go back first. Notice that also it starts the server at port 3000. Okay. This is the controller. This controller handles the slash request. So if you got a slash resource, this controller handles it. We inject a service in this particular controller. In case it injects a service, the app service which we have defined into this, and then this is the method. So if there is any request that matches this, get this method will handle it. And what it does is that it just returns hello, get hello. And what is get hello? So get hello is TA app service. So it just returns hello world, right? So we can actually access this by just going localhost 3000, and now we see hello world. And if we change this guy, let's change this to code hello world. Okay. And since this is not React, we need to basically quote it. If I do a reload again, you notice that has changed. Okay, so we can run this from a command line. We can do the same thing from command line. We can do http localhost 3000, right? Okay, so that's the hello world. And if we type something that no controller, that will match no controller, you'll get a 404. Okay, so we have scaffold our application. So before we actually go any further, or in this case, since this is the first first episode of this second season, we'll do something really like we'll just set up our application. One of the first thing I would like to do is this. I would like to actually make the application log out all my requests. Under the hoods, right? Nest actually uses Express. Okay, you can choose fastly, but under the hood, Nest uses Express, the Express framework, the very popular Express framework. So in other words, any Express middleware you can actually use with Nest. And so to do logging in Express, and so what I want to do is I want to do logging here. So to do logging, I can just use any logging middleware for Express, right? So one very popular logging middleware is Morgan. So let me show you. So this is Morgan. Okay. It is very, very simple to use. You just install it, and then you just say you can provide a custom you can specify the format of a custom format, or you can use some predefined ones like combine or or common or combine or what have you, right? So I'm going to install Morgan. So I'll go npm install Morgan. And since Morgan is since we're using TypeScript, we will also install the types for Morgan. Like so. Okay. So now that we have installed Morgan, what we will do is this. We will go back to our main, and we will now add Morgan in here. So I'll have to import Morgan. So Morgan. Let me do that. So I will put it here. Okay. So now I can go add use Morgan, and then I want to use the format called combine. Combine is actually default. You don't have to say combine. If you don't say anything, the default log format will be combine. So anyway, I'll just put it in there. So now that is restarted, we can just do a quick HTTP and notice that we are now logging our output. Right? Okay, so that's one thing, very easy. So the second thing I probably want to do is I want to provide a way to customize. Customize my port, right? I want to have the flexibility to say I want to listen to port 8080 instead of just port 3000. Okay, so we can use another package called yarks. Okay, so we're going to use this yarks. So let's go ahead and install this guy. And again, just like Morgan, we're going to install the types. Okay, so now I've installed that. Now we can set up a few command line options using yarks. So let me import first. Okay, so now I will define my command line option by doing this arc v. You can say yarks, and then we want to say options. Okay, options. Right, and then I'll say one of the options is I want to be port. So the type is a number. Okay, and then the default value is, let's say, 3000. Okay, like that. And then I will do, I need to call an argv here to pass my command line argument. Okay, so once I've got that, I can now, pass argv. I can access this like this. So the port, this port is this key here, right? This key here, and I will define a parameter here. I'll define a parameter here. Let's call this port again, which is of type number. Okay, and what I'll do is this: I will print out when the application has successfully started. I will print out a message like this. Okay, I can say console info, right? I can say application started on port at, we'll give it the time as well, the date time as well. Okay? So let's not forget that we need to use the port here. Okay, so if you now go back, you'll now notice that that the application started on port 3000, and we can actually now start another instance of it by calling node. So recall that our application is in here, the compile files are in here, so we can go node, this main, we say port, let's start on port 8080. So now we've got another instance running on port 8080. Okay, so that's, so one way is to rely on the default. If you don't say anything, this will probably fail because we already got one port running here. Okay, this will fail because the port is already used. So if you don't specify anything, you just use the default. You can alternatively say what port you want to start it on. A third way to actually pass in information into application is to use is through the use of environment variable. So very often you see people running applications like this. Go port 8080, right? And then you can say node this main. Okay. So in this case, so we are saying set the port 8080, provide node, run the node, set the environment variable 8080, and run it, and run this node inside this environment with this environment variable set port 8080, right? So but now if you try to run this, it will not work. The reason is because we are not getting the port information. Okay, so what we want to do is this: we want to have a precedence in setting our port number. Okay, so we will say, so the precedence is like this. We will get the information from command line. So the precedence, the order of importance is from command line, from our command line. Okay, from our command line option. If that is not available, then we get from the environment, and if that is not available, then we fall back to default. So our default in this case is 3000, right? So what we can do is this: we can actually set it here. So the way the way we get the information from environment variable is we go process env port. Okay, so this port here, this variable port here, must be the same as this, and the environment variable is read in as a string. So we need to call pass in, and we will do that. Okay, so we say if the port, if the command line argument is not set, then we look at it, then we try to get it from the environment variable. If that is not set, then we fall back to the default. So let's see how, if this works. So this is, so we don't have the command line argument, but we have the environment variable set. So if we run this now, notice that it has picked up the environment variable from 8080. Excuse me. Okay. Another way to actually read the environment variable, actually a more controlled way to read environment variable is this. Very often you find that in Node, what typically people will also do is they'll create a file instead of always setting the environment variable, they create a file called env, and what they do is that they'll put the environment variable in here, like let's say 5,000 in here, right? And then what is going to happen is this: whenever the application starts up, it will try to get the try to read some properties like a port from the command line, and if it's not available, then you try to read from the environment variable. So in the environment variable, now we have got two options: either to look at the real environment variable or to look at the .env file. So those two are the same, okay? And if those are not available, then it falls back to the default. So to get it to read from this environment variable, this .env environment variable, there is another library called .env. Okay. So the really nice thing about .env is this: when you call it, it will look at the .env file if it is there. So if it is available, you'll take all the key value pair settings and and populate it into the process.env. So treat it as if like it is the environment variable. Okay. So we will install this. Okay. We will install this. So that is done. We don't have to install the types because .env file actually has types. So now we will import in .env from .env, and what we need to do is just this. Just before our argument line, we just call .env config. Okay. If you don't do anything, it will read standard. It will the standard is to look for the .env file. Okay. So if I do that, notice that now is port 5000. Look at this application. It started as port 5000 because that port actually comes from the this environment variable. If I change this to, let's say, 8080, right? And I restart this again, notice that it has gone to port 8080, right? And I can also now have the option of saying saying this, let's say note this main, right? Port, say, let's say 3000. So this one has highest precedence because it's directly on the when we execute the command. So now we can do that. I mean, we can specify our port. Okay. So one final thing, just before we end this first episode. So if you notice this, sorry, not 3000. It is now at port 8080. So default is now port 8080. So if you notice this now, there is this thing called the X powered by Express. So the server is telling us that we are looking at an Express server. So for security wise, you may not actually want to have this X powered by Express. You may want to disable it, right? And Express application allows us to disable it. Okay. So to disable the powered by, what we will do is this. Okay. What we do is this. We need to access the Express application itself. Okay. Or we need to get Nest. We need to get Nest to give us the actual Express application. And so to do that, what we need to do is this: we need to import in the Nest application, the Express application, using the Express platform. So we say this. So this is the Nest. I mean, this is a wrapper for the Nest Express application. So this is the line that creates it. So when we create, we want to say that give me the Nest Express application. Okay. So now with the app, I can go disable. So if you don't have this line, right? If you don't have, oops, sorry. If you don't have this line, you will not get access to disable. There's no disable. Okay, but if you now have this line, okay, you specifically request that Nest gives you access to the underlying Express engine, then now you can have disable. Okay, so if you notice, if you read here, you can disable a bunch of things. This you can get more of this information in Express here, the Express API, and then you can look for disable here. Right, so there's a whole bunch of things that there's a set, there's a whole bunch of things that you can disable, and the one that we want is X powered by this thing. So we will say, so where is it? So we can say disable, right? X powered by. Okay. So now it's started again, and if we now do this, oops, okay, 8080, you now notice that the X powered by is gone. Okay, so I will stop here. In the next episode, what I will do is that we will now start creating our own custom resource, okay, rather than using what is provided. So I'll see you the next time. And by the way, if you want to check out the code, the branch is oops, part 80. Okay, till next time, stay safe.